Welcome, everyone. I'm Mayor Densmore. This is January 23rd, the meeting of our full council meeting. If you would stand if you're able so we can get the meeting started with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hurth, would you get us started with a roll call?
Sure. Ms. Cheney?
Here.
Mr. Marks?
Here.
Mr. Van Harn?
Here.
Mr. Knapp?
Here.
Ms. Snyder?
Here.
Mr. Fisher is out of town this evening.
Motion to excuse.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Presuming everyone has had an opportunity to look at the agenda, is there any amendments that would like to be proposed? If not, is there a motion to accept the
Motion to
agenda?
approve the agenda.
I actually have,
Well,
I would like to call for a short executive session regarding
Acquisition of real estate.
something that's come up. I've talked around with it, but I want to.
Okay. Are you proposing that that be added to the legal section or at the very end of our,
Wherever it's best.
anybody have a preference where that goes on the agenda?
I would do it at the end.
Do it at the end?
Okay.
All right, without objection. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. We don't have anyone registered to address council this evening. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. If everyone has had an opportunity to review the minutes from January 9th, are there any amendments to that, or is there a motion to accept them as they are?
Motion to accept minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Let's see. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that we go right to my report then, which is brief. The two things I wanted to bring up. The first one is Dr. Bronson, who is a dentist in the tri-state area. I'm going to read a little bit about him here. He's a graduate of Walnut Heights School and attended Ohio State University of Dentistry, earned a doctor in dental surgery, and then joined his father's practice, and has since then become both the vice president and president of the Cincinnati Dental Association, vice president and president of the Ohio Dental Association, and I believe is serving either, as I'll have to correct this after speaking with him, I didn't have time to research it, either vice president or president of the National Dental Association. And he likes to speak about the importance of access to care, as well as community health and oral hygiene. I was speaking just now with Mr. Hurth, who was, our We Thrive initiative is all about community health and initiatives and improving the health of communities through that avenue. And I asked Mr. Bronson if he would be interested in coming and speaking to council, perhaps to our We Thrive group as well, and looking at some opportunities to perhaps partner. He said he'd be happy to do that. And so I gave him the draft schedule of what our council meetings look like, and I'm turning it over to you guys and Mr. Hurth to kind of look at what might be a good time for him to come in and speak. About 15-20 minutes is what I'm thinking would be appropriate.
Should that be more of a announced open meeting, more public? Because it seems like, we
Yeah.
don't really have an audience here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this should be something like offered as a meeting where parents like that can be here.
Yeah.
Like a town hall sort of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rather than here. I think
Yeah.
it's nice that he wouldn't want to come, but I think.
Maybe we can have him speak and somebody else speak and make it kind of a bigger event, make it like a town hall.
Absolutely. I would like him to come and speak about the possibilities of what he would be interested in doing with regard to that, speak to council about that.
Yeah.
And then, do something larger. I've also spoke to him about connections I have through the Mayor's Association with the First Suburbs Consortium, and the possibility of his speaking on a much larger scale through that platform as well. So I'll turn that over then to Mr. Hurth to kind of look at the schedule, and if you guys have input, certainly speak with him about that. Does that work?
Yep.
All right. The other thing, and this is, I'm sure you all probably saw this, Duke Energy is required to let you know when they're changing their rates for public comment and everything. They're actually lowering their rates. I believe that was because of a lawsuit. So they're lowering their rates, and if you're interested in telling them whether that's a good idea or not, let me know. We can get that published in minutes. All right.
Yeah.
And I believe that is all I have this evening. So I will turn it over to Mr. Hirth for.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry. So let's do a quick
I
road
hope I haven't
summary.
upset anybody. I'm not,
So the WEHE pre-construction meeting has not yet been scheduled. Had a little delay on activities for the last couple of weeks, but we are not behind. At this point, we're waiting on the contractor to finalize when they believe they're going to actually physically be in the village. If you've been in the north end, the northeastern end of the village, you've noticed that road construction specific to the water project has started on Englewood, and now they're coming down Canterbury. That is going to be a big project. What I have realized, there's a couple of nuances between the contractors that we have to coordinate, such as purchasing water hydrants. Previously, when the contractor was doing this all at once with the waterworks and then with our contractor, we didn't have to get involved in that. At this point, now we do. Still, the long-term benefit of us controlling the construction is going to be better than what it was before. At least I'm going to keep telling myself that right now. Yes.
So I asked this since I'm out there around a lot. They replaced all the hydrants on the Pleasant Ridge streets. It doesn't look like they saw stub outs for new hydrants on extended Englewood. I'm just wondering, are they going to put new fire hydrants in
Yeah.
all along Englewood and Canterbury?
Correct.
Okay, because right now they don't appear.
So the piece of Canterbury is from Fair Oaks down to Hamel is not being done. They're only doing 2 Fair Oaks.
Right, I understand.
So
But I'm concerned about Englewood because there's
Yeah.
just one old hydrant on.
yeah, Englewood's going to have all new hydrants because I talked with Mr. Putoff today about we want to get on a program of starting to rehabilitate the fire hydrants across the village because over half of them now are the new style yellow fire hydrants. We'll continue to replace this as we do road projects.
Right.
So over 3/4 of them will be new by the time we get done with Hamel next year.
Okay, thanks.
So the Canterbury Englewood Road Construction Project is going out to bid on January 26th, which is Thursday of this week. Bid packets will be open here in this room live at 11 o'clock on February 14th. That work will be scheduled to begin with completion of the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks work. And in the letter to the residents, they specifically stated that their work would be done by the end of June. It's going to be before that, we anticipate, unless we have like really, really bad weather. But I think that's a reasonable amount of time for people to see other progress taking place. Unfortunately, everybody's lives are going to be, and the Vera folks, you have an interruption for about a year. So we'll try to make it as painless as we can. Street sweeping is not yet scheduled. Mother Nature still has other plans for us, so we'll have a better idea as the weather improves. We are continuing to work towards issuing an RFP to raise the buildings on Lasanaville and WEHE. And we'll be looking to legal counsel to review that when we get to the point of having that together. Mr. Pridnoff last time had talked about loss prevention and asset protection as a part of his position. The police department is methodically moving through their vehicles at this point. And what we have requested them to do is a full replacement assessment on all of their vehicles before we have a discussion about when they get new vehicles again going forward. That's moving along well, and the process that we've developed to do that is working. So we'll have a report to council on that probably within the next 30 to 60 days. Unfortunately, because of some things that happened last week, we did have to postpone the village app discussion. with the Community Engagement Committee. I had hoped to reschedule that for this week. Everything kept falling in the way of doing that. I'm looking at January 31st. I don't know if anybody wants to, I saw one grimace.
In the morning?
Yeah, it would be 9:30 again. That's a Tuesday.
Yeah, I got so much on my calendar that day. Wait a minute.
When you ask about it in the morning, is it preferable for you to have it later in the day or?
No. Morning's good.
It depends on when the contractor is available,
Okay,
which is the problem we ran into today.
okay.
So
Ms.
nine
Snyder,
thirty
do
on
you
the
have-
31st?
It would be 9:30 if that's when she's
Okay.
available. And I'm good on that day, as far as I know.
So I'll go ahead and move forward on the 31st.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
And I'll confirm with everybody. Now, that leaves the open meeting for community engagement. Did you want to try and do that then? Or do you want to hold that until February?
Are you talking about just a normal community engagement meeting?
Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like people are gonna have a lot of questions about the app, so I think it should be separate, like just an app meeting and then other business at a
Okay.
later time.
So we'll schedule
We could get together on Valentine's Day.
Tuesday, the 31st, and I'll confirm with everybody on that date.
Okay.
Progress is moving on the basement. We've actually rented a conveyor belt, which I've not seen. I heard that they were starting to assemble it today, but it will carry items out of the basement up into the parking lot and
Can we ride
and
it?
into the Wayback Machine.
Oh.
No, that could be fun, I
That
guess.
would be fun.
The biggest thing down there is just the boxes and boxes of paper that we have a shredding company coming that's just going to go directly into the truck and be shredded on site. So that's moving along. So in 30 days, we may have a clean basement and a place to put more stuff.
What are these documents, Ron?
I don't worry about it. No.
It hurt my ears up just a little bit. What are they?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
He was asking, what are the documents?
Most of them are like old police records and things that we're very closely watching the RC2 as we're sorting through these things. So
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You're good with the process for,
correct.
okay.
They're cataloging as they move.
Okay.
Good job, Mr. Butler.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's things from the 60s and 70s.
Well, it doesn't matter how old they are. It's just,
Yeah.
What they are,
What they are, what
In the
time
40s,
frame.
You can ask our former solicitor
mhm.
if we've been adequately briefed on all
Okay.
that. My understanding is that we have been.
Okay.
But I would appreciate if you double check.
I will check with him.
Pretty sure we have, right?
I know that there are some neat but insignificant records down there, and I know we can't let everyone in the community go and dig through, but I know I found some things that were related to my house
Mhm.
that I would personally like to, if they're
Yeah.
just gonna get shredded, I'd like to grab them.
Their building permits.
The building-
Original building permits
Oh,
are
wow.
down there and they're very interesting.
Yeah, they are.
Uh-huh.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well-
You'll know what your house was.
Anything that we're supposed to keep, we're not getting rid of.
Okay,
So,
well, I mean, if you're keeping them, that's fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, you get to keep
yeah,
them.
we're not just, it's not a wholesale, let's throw everything out of the basement. It's,
Oh,
there's
you
a
will keep
lot
that
of stuff that just
Okay.
was never thrown out because no one ever made the decision about what needed or didn't need to be kept. So, yeah, this is an organized process.
It's like trying to clean up the basement in my house. Suddenly you got all these other hands that are like, oh, wait, whoa, let me look at this. You know, and
Yeah.
it doesn't get done. So
They do when
Back
they
off.
run around.
Yeah, mine found a whole bunch of Easter things 2 days ago in the basement.
ah,
Shoot.
Oh, there's stuff, all festivals down there, all recreation stuff.
Okay, moving along here on our AED project. That project is still open pending completion. Units for each patrol car in the municipal building were ordered and we're awaiting delivery. CPR classes will be scheduled for the employees and for council members if you wish to participate. Online and in-class training are required as a blended experience. So what I was explaining how this is going to work is there will be a date when the online course will be offered, that you actually go to the Red Cross website, you complete the online course, you get your printed certificate, and that prepares you to come to the actual in-class section where you'll practice on the things that they practice on to give CPR and to do AED stuff. There will be a minimum of 6 slots available for council members to register. So if you have an interest in doing that, if the mayor wishes to do it, to learn CPR, let me know as soon as possible, and I'll provide your name and email to the rep at the Red Cross.
Do a quick
So,
census right
send-
now.
Send me an
Who's
email.
interested? Send you an email.
When will this be?
Yeah, send me an email so I have documentation.
About how far away?
How long from now?
Would you say?
Um, How long is the training?
Or when is the training? How
It's-
long?
It's sometime in February. We believe the classes are going to open, I think he said on February 6th.
Well, I'm interested, I just don't know if I can, I don't know what, if I can get on my knees. I can't get on my knees, guys.
Yeah, I pictured myself on the floor on my knees. It's
Anyway,
like,
I'm interested, but we'll see.
sure about that right now.
So to reiterate, if you're interested, send Ron, send Mr. Hirth an email.
And then finally, no additional information yet on the Hamilton County Relief Bus. As I mentioned last time, they have an interest in using our facility for a service day for this particular region. Hopefully we'll know something more about this in the next week or so. And then beyond that, I appreciate everybody's best wishes the last week. It was a weird week and got a little bit of a road to hoe here yet. However, things are getting back to normal. So go team. And that is the end of my report, unless there are questions.
Do you want to speak to the our meeting with the We Thrive folks?
Yeah, good point. So there is a grant that is available. We need to talk to Casey, get some feedback from her. There's a $3,750 grant that's available to We Thrive communities. And in talking with Christy, our rep, and we now have a new rep named Tim.
Christy's gone.
Yeah, so,
The 3750 is kind of a given.
Mhm.
We'll get that, but we do need to earmark some projects, and the application for that is due on January 31st. I turned that process over to Mr. Pridnoff last week, and he has started working on the applications. So he's out until Monday of next week, but assures me that he'll be ready to submit that on Tuesday. The other piece of it is I saw an email that didn't have a lot of, well, she didn't, did you see that?
Yeah.
From this afternoon?
Yeah.
There's another grant that's becoming available that is going to be a larger pool of money. It sounded like maybe $11,000 to $15,000 per community that we would be able to use for community enrichment projects in the village. One of the things that they said we could do is invest in things that we might like to do in our park, like improve our amphitheater. So piggyback on that, I've been trying to find out when Second Wind Band is available again, and they are available the third Sunday in September, so about the same time. And I know last year when we set that concert up, there were some physical deficiencies in the amphitheater that I think we will have the ability to correct with our maintenance guys, because we haven't really talked about this, but Matt Scott is going to teach our maintenance workers how to pour concrete.
Good.
So we've been working on that for the last couple of months. And one of the projects that we're talking about doing is creating concrete pads for the garbage cans down La Sanadel Avenue to prepare for a more permanent installation. And we'd like to be able to try and do that in-house. So these are nice small projects. You know, would I send them out to do an entire plaza? Probably not, but to do something small, these things could work. Putting those holders up on the edges for the speakers and things might be something that we need to talk about. So we need to have a conversation about what that might look like. But there will be an application process that takes place sometime in February, March, that we'll have to have an application in to the county. It sounded like we have a really good chance of getting those funds, but then it's based on need and how well you present the need. So the nice thing about this is Mr. Pridnoff is in the middle of working with Lexipol on starting to put together our standardized answers for grants. So we will have a pool of information that when these opportunities come up, we're not going to have to recreate the wheel every time we want to answer something. We'll have a best practice and an educated discussion and explanation of what it is we need to and want to do. So this is really kind of nice. This is happening now because it gives us something smaller to concentrate on when we start to look for some of the bigger fish that we want to catch. But I think it's
really great.
It seems like we have a really good partnership with We Thrive,
Yep.
and they're supporting us doing things. So
May I offer a couple other things, just food for thought, is making better power hookups around the park. Because
We've already
there's always
discussed that.
generators and all that stuff, and then I would think we should consider lighting. That it may not be there just to light up the park at night, but maybe go on if somebody goes in there at night, you know, just something that would be there as a safety thing, you know. Just a couple ideas to throw in the mix.
well, and that gets back to the subcommittee of community engagement for the
Mhm.
parks. We need to engage that group again
Yes.
and start to put together some coordination of their thoughts in terms of what things people would like to see be done in the park.
I
We
agree.
can start to phase out doing things.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Christy had said was that she had heard, she was the one that presented to us the idea about, hey, or I heard something about you guys might want to work on your amphitheater and we've got some money. All right, so she's been talking, and so we wanted to definitely pull in that group of folks to say, hey, yeah, you know, what are your ideas for it?
For sure.
So,
Speaking of the park, did we ever get a summary of that meeting over at the park?
Bryant wasn't prepared to give it the last time he was with us, and then, you know, holidays,
Yeah.
and then, but hopefully at our next We Thrive that isn't all about that, or not We Thrive, our community engagement that isn't all about the app.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
the number one thing that I would like to get through, is get that report.
all right, any other questions?
Excellent.
Let's see. I see that we don't have Chief Campbell or Sergeant Reed here this evening. And so I believe, without objection, we'll go directly to the solicitor's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. The, in front of you is our memo. We have, the only thing on it is ordinance number 2023-1. It's set for a second reading this evening. It's a updating the rules and regulations for the use of the park. Again, it is set for second reading, which you can, well, I would hope you move to read by title only, and then it's up to you whether you want to amend, or I'm sorry, waive the third reading or leave it on for a third reading for you.
I know I have a lot of things I went over since the last meeting, so I have some things I'd like to adjust on
Okay,
and talk about.
so you want to just do a
Second reading.
First, read by title, but then.
read by title only, that's fine.
That's what.
Is there a second to read by title only?
Sorry.
So,
All those in favor?
sorry.
Aye.
Without objection, that's unanimous.
Okay, ordinance number 2023-1, an ordinance amending section 931.01 of the Code of Ordinances to update rules and regulations for the use of village parks.
All right, any discussion? You were saying that.
Yeah, I've went through this and had a few questions on thoughts. On the reservation, that would be the first page, letter
Can
B,
you say the section?
931.01.
Okay.
It's under section 9301.01, section B.
Right,
Okay.
I'll get better at that, thanks. Okay,
Sure.
let's see, capture my thought here. I think what this was about is that they can reserve the park, they'll be responsible for any damage for the park and clean up and disposal of any refuse or litter. Do we want to consider having a deposit for events that they actually can get it? It's refunded at the end.
Mhm.
Because I think it just feels weird that if they do damage, then we got to go after them. I'd rather have that discussion up front to say it's $100, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's scaled, and then but it's refunded at the end. And then it also gives us a chance to maybe know what's already damaged in the park, so we're not,
Right.
Anybody
have a sense of what would be an appropriate, like what
Well,
is the typical?
I thought when we were developing this, Mr. Donald was suggesting that we get this in order and we have a separate discussion about fees.
That's
at
correct.
another time. Get this in order, and then we can decide whether there be fees for residents or not, and what fees and anything else there might be for non-residents. So yeah, we agreed that would not be in this, that would be a discussion. Is that correct?
A resolution.
A resolution later to add fees once we discuss. what
Okay.
fees.
okay,
You weren't here for that.
okay. All right, then let's see.
To get that on
there.
Agenda following up this.
Yeah.
93.1.01, section C. I read a lot of this one, and to me, it was, it's all about the alcohol.
Yes.
And there's things that were kind of confusing to me, the way it's written. Because, let's see, it says here, they're responsible to secure and present a liquor permit issued by the state of Ohio, the Department of Commerce, et cetera. If admission is charged or if alcoholic beverages are sold at the event. Let's see, but then later it says, applicants selling beverages at the event or which charge admission to the event serving alcohol must also secure appropriate host liability coverage and, if requested, must present a copy of such coverage to the village prior to the approval of the event. Couple things. The permit to get alcohol to be able to sell it is, first, you have to be an organization to get one. It's not just a person. So it's not a problem. Secondly, you have to apply for it, the permit as an organization, a minimum of 30 days before the event. The permit requires you to go to the chief of police and the administrator to sign off on it before you can send the permit in.
Right.
So I'm saying if requested, this doesn't really fit. They must supply the permit. And because they will anyway, but they have to. It's not something you can just request because we have to sign off on it as a chief of police and the administrator. So I know that's why you have to look that I was reading it going,
Yeah, I'm trying to follow
they're trying to
what.
put it together like we're in charge of it, but really we're not.
No.
The state is more in charge of it than us.
I thought the way this reads, this says applicants are responsible to secure and present a liquor permit issued by the state of Ohio.
Where do you see the words "if requested"?
It's
It's
the
the second part
second, it's
down
in the
here.
last sentence.
If requested,
second from the
present a
bottom.
copy of such coverage.
Oh. I guess what he's saying is, or what it is saying is, they have to have it, and if we request it, they got to show it. That's all.
So it's like a food truck, like has to be licensed but they also have to have a copy of that food permit with them at all times.
So they better have it if we request it.
Yeah, I
I
guess.
guess
We
what,
went over this several times, when we were developing this.
yeah, and to your point, I'm thinking like the situation where it might be relevant is like a food truck. If it gets revoked and we don't, like they've already shown it to us, but then it gets revoked, or we hear a rumor that's been revoked, we can say, we're requesting you to show it to us. And that's the way it's written. So,
I mean,
To me, it just opens up the possibility for somebody to bring in alcohol and try to do it. And then say, oh, we got to request it now.
but it says they have to secure the appropriate host liquor liability coverage. And that's all this sentence is talking about. And and present a copy of it if it's requested.
This is talking about the
We're talking about
liability coverage.
Yeah, we're talking about the coverage,
Right,
the
okay.
the
Right,
insurance.
the last sentence is about the liability, not.
The rest of it, I mean, and that's not something, I understand what you're talking about, Roger, but that's not something that's voluntary. And if it's requested, they have to get it. The only thing that if requested referred to is if we ask for a copy of it, they have to show it.
Okay. Well, one thing that when I read this, it looks like if somebody wanted to come in and have an event, but not sell the alcohol, just give it away, that's possible the way this is written. Now, I know one piece says you're not allowed to sell tickets. That may include it. That's different. And then, of course, selling it right off the truck. But the way this is written, it seems like somebody could still come in and we're just going to give it away. And I don't think.
Or ask for donations.
Yeah.
I think you're right. And the first sentence seems to indicate if you're going to do that, you got to get liquor authorization. Okay.
Yes.
And then if you're going to sell it, then that's a whole different thing.
Right.
But you're right. If they're going to give it away, they still have to get the authority through the office of the village administrator or the chief of police.
Right. But then now the liability is on us.
I disagree that the liability would be on us unless we did something wrong. I mean, just because they're drinking in that, if, for example, a dram shop, you're familiar with that? That's where you sue a bar because they overserve somebody and they go out and get in an accident. That kind of liability is going to be on who's ever given the alcohol, not just because they're doing it in our park. Okay, so I don't think the liability goes with the bad actor. If we don't, the only liability if someone's giving away alcohol in that park is if we had some part in it, and I'm struggling with how we would ever have a part in somebody giving alcohol away in the park and over serving somebody.
4th of July.
Pardon?
4th of July.
Well, it doesn't matter when. I'm just saying, say if somebody's over there.
4th of July event.
If it's our 4th of July event
Yeah.
and somebody's giving away alcohol under this and they've asked for authority to do so, to have
No,
alcohol.
just like the local residents bring their own cooler. kind
Yeah,
of thing.
well, they would be in violation of this. And that would prevent us from being liable. I mean, we put some regulation and somebody goes in the park and breaks our own ordinance, then, we've done what we could to prevent it from happening.
If it's a Golf Manor sponsored event.
Golf Manor sponsored event that,
People bring their own beer and
well,
give it out to their friends. That's
again, we're not giving out the beer and they're still gonna have to comply with this before they do it. I mean, that was the discussion I'm presuming that you had.
Well, at the very end, it does say that the village is exempt from all these rules. So we can do.
Yeah, but that's different.
Regarding the alcohol.
That's completely different.
I still.
Yeah, go party.
My gut just says there's a window here because I know how people try to find the way through without having to buy permit, without having to buy the license, the insurance, without, dealing with permits with it. And if that's open, I think they could do it.
So people could toss stuff over the fence and we can't control that.
I was gonna
Well,
say,
but I'm talking about alcohol. I think
That's what I'm saying.
this is something.
Yeah, we did talk about, there was a discussion about this and, Mr. Donlin went through this pretty thoroughly, we thought. And I think what this says is outlines you can't possess or consume without authorization from the village.
And that's if you're giving it away.
If you're giving it away.
And
And
then
if you're
if-
gonna sell
sell it,
it, there's a
then-
whole nother,
Okay. What might even cleared up just somewhat, and I don't mean to step on my boss's toes, but just making it 2 paragraphs.
Mhm.
You know, where it says village website, through the village website, and then a new paragraph where it says alcohol beverage cannot be sold. That might clarify it somewhat, that we got kind of 2 standards. One, if you're giving it away, and then if you're selling it, you got to do the rest. You
so
follow
make
me?
it 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, just,
The first one starting with no persons, the second
Yeah.
one starting with alcoholic beverage.
Yeah.
That could help,
So you're saying that very first line basically says you can't give away alcohol, period.
without a permit.
without a permit.
Without permission.
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 It says with the
No,
office of
a
village administrator.
liquor authorization.
Which is given through us.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it
So
has to be worked with the chief of police.
The way, if I step back, the way this sort of reads then is, if I'm gonna have a family reunion,
Yep.
and we're just gonna have coolers of beer there, you know, we're not selling, we're just giving it away, but maybe, let's say there's 100 people there. I wanna go to the village and they said, okay, we'll give you permission, and you don't need the state because we're not selling. That's
Right.
one level
Right.
of permission that we as a village can have.
Correct.
And then the next level is if it's being sold. And to me, anyway, if it's being sold, that's when everything changes. That's when I can't get as a person, I have to get a permit through an organization. And that, you know, those requires liability, sure, and all that's the second level.
And that's
Yes,
what,
sir.
that's what
Right,
the second part
right.
of this does, is
Okay.
outlines all those requirements.
I have one thing to ask about alcohol if you're done with your questions about alcohol before we move on to other things.
I wanted to follow up on your comment earlier though, about what if an organization says, hey, we've got alcohol and we're gonna give it out for donations, not selling.
I guess that's something they would let Ron, the administrator, know when they are seeking the liquor authorization.
Mhm.
Right. And I would agree that if someone comes in and says, we're whatever, and we're
Girl
gonna
Scout troop.
we're gonna be we're Girl Scout troop, and we're not only gonna give it away to the Girl Scouts and break that law, we're gonna give it away to the parents, and you know, Mr. Hirth, we want an authority to do that. Well, we're gonna give it away, but we're gonna ask for donations. I would think we would say no. That's
It's
you're
selling.
you're going around. I mean, it's distinction without a meaning. You're going around this ordinance to try to sell your alcohol.
If someone does
I
that
would think
without
so, too.
asking, like if they say, we're gonna be giving it away, but they don't mention the part about asking for donations, and then we live at the event, we realize that that's happening, what recourse do we have?
Well, I mean, at the time, obviously,
Well, if they weren't truthful on the liquor authorization application form from the administrator,
Okay.
just revoke it.
Does the application form ask specifically, are you gonna be asking for donations?
I don't even think that-
We
I don't
know what
think
that
you've
form
created-
looks like yet.
Yeah, we haven't done it yet.
right?
Okay.
But I
So
think
then
that's
we'll
a
make
really
sure.
good idea
Yeah. Okay.
to ask
That's
those
in
kind of
there.
questions on the form.
I know of a real life example of a large nonprofit that has a event every year. It's beer and chili. And the beer is provided by home brewers. And you buy a ticket. And it's like tasting and chili. And they somehow have figured out that this doesn't apply to having to get the permit to sell it or something. But, you know, that this is their thing. And this is, they do it every year. And I've talked to them directly and
Well, I don't
right or
know.
wrong, I don't
We
know.
don't
This
know what
wouldn't
that
apply.
but
This
they-
wouldn't apply to chili. But if they're trying to do it with,
Well, the ticket includes the tasting of the chili and tasting of the.
Oh.
That would have to be
Is
on
it
the application
same
form.
thing, same problem.
Yeah, that would have to be on the application.
Yeah, I mean, you
So
know,
it's not spelled out here, it's spelled out.
On the
Yeah.
application.
Well,
We're trying to-
we would, when we do the form, I think we'll
Yeah.
work with you to prepare that document.
Make sure that it has that on there.
So I have it's a fundamental question for council, and it's kind of like, how do we want to be policed? How do we want to run our parks? So as a body, as residents, do we want people having events in our parks? And I'm thinking there's two different kinds. There's a kind that are more organized like our event was, or you have a family showing up for whatever on a weekend and they have their beer cooler with them. What's our point of view if you start sharing free alcohol with everybody? So are we specific enough in saying no alcohol in our park, period? Have we said that? Unless you
Well,
get
the first
permission.
sentence says no person shall possess or consume beverages within the park except with prior liquor authorization issued by all the city.
So yes.
So basically,
It's
you're not
a
allowed
basic-
to unless they
It's a
come.
basic prohibition at this point. But that's a good point. That's something that I was kind of rethinking. I think we want to have our residents to have the freedom to say, hey, you know what? Sun's out, it's Saturday, mom and pa are coming in, let's get out of the park. And they bring a cooler of beer with them. And, their small, 15-person gathering has a picnic and a couple of beers. Personally, I don't want to restrict that. I think that kind of
We're not
restricts what we're trying to do.
restricting it
It says no person shall possess or consume alcoholic beverages within the park.
without the form.
Right, but in my example, it was like, it's a Saturday, it looks nice, I'm gonna go ahead and the administration building's closed.
Yeah, there's going to be cases where people don't even know.
Yeah,
They don't even know. They're just going down there. So I'm thinking that it's going to go to. I mean, I hear your point. I'm
It's a
thinking that in
judgment
practice, in practice, there's going to be a judgment call about the enforcement of it, right? And the thing is we've got the legal backing if we decide to enforce it. Okay.
Because we don't want
Or-
people
or
with like
replace that exception.
paper bags just like
Yeah,
wandering around in our park,
and-
but at the
and
same
the wine
time,
is showing up and hanging out.
I got some experience with that, and I agree with you. I wouldn't want to go get an authorization.
tell
Yeah.
people that. I have a great little filter, I guess. No, I understand your point. First of all, is there a sign out there that says no alcoholic beverages? And if there is, it should be expanded to say without authority. Blah, blah, blah.
There's a signage project I want to complete over there, and I think it needs to be more specific to the park rules that we're adopting here, and that's like number one, no alcohol permitted.
Right. But I think
Unless
it should be
by
expanded
permit.
to say unless by permit, see the village administrator.
Now,
Whatever.
the other piece of that is
QR
on a
code.
Saturday when mom and pa decide to drop off in the cooler, they can't just wander over on a Saturday and say, hey, where's the police chief? We want permission to drink beer in the park.
Right.
So it has to be, it's a process that
Mhm.
people have to go through and legally be signed.
well, I think
So,
that
I mean, as it stands now, yeah, but I'm saying maybe that's something we do put an exception.
well, I think as a practical matter, we don't really enforce that. But I think if they saw a person with paper bags stumbling
Maybe
around, and,
Selective enforcement and.
I agree with. I think I agree with you. I don't think we want to get in a situation where we're saying, well, we don't really enforce it. Because
right?
somebody's going to say, wait a minute, they did it last weekend. Now
Right.
you're calling us on
Yeah.
it.
Sure. Well,
accusation of-
yeah.
of discriminatory.
We have a comment from Mr. Simon.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to share that, I forget whether we originally started talking about this in executive or if it was planning. But, one of the things that Mr. Donnellan specifically talked about was an element of common sense where that family on a Saturday, that gives the police, it kind of gives them power if they need it. If they
Right.
see a problem, it's
Yeah.
there. Not that, there's gonna be a police Gestapo checking packages as people go in and out, but that the language is there if the police need it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I agree with Danny, we want the place to, be relaxed. But I also know, and Terry has said this, if we don't have something in there, we can't do any enforcement.
That's correct.
unless
And that's why this
So
is-
there's a window that we all understand is gonna be there, but we have to have it, so I think that's basically what you're saying too. I want what Danny said, but I also understand now that they have to.
Well, there's
enforce it, so.
the question, given that that's the case, and I think we're all in agreement with that, then there's the issue about the signage. Does that basically prevent that, like if a family's going down there and they see it, they're just like, oh, we're bummed, and they leave, right? Because technically that's the rule. I think that's what
Right.
Mr. Knipp was bringing up is, and what Mr. Hurd was bringing up is like, what's the culture of this that we want, right? So that's something to think about. We got another reading, so let's, why don't we go ahead and move forward, do the vote on the second reading here, go ahead, agree to have the third reading, and,
I
you
got a
know,
couple more things, yeah.
Well, I do still have,
Yeah, your question?
yeah, so last year we had the situation where an informal group of residents decided to throw a Juneteenth celebration. And they aren't a nonprofit, so they couldn't apply for a liquor license. So what they did was find a mobile bartender who has her own license to like mobily serve at different locations. And so in that case, she was the one carrying the liability insurance and also the one with the liquor license. It wasn't for the event. What would you recommend that they do in this case? Because I don't want to stop the momentum that we have built with, you know, community people wanting to throw parties in the park. So I don't want it to be overly burdensome. At the same time, I want it to be as fair as possible for the organizations.
I
that
think
do.
that covers it.
You do?
I
Okay.
think, yeah, that
Actually,
language covers it.
it doesn't. I checked
Well-
with the state, there's no such thing as a mobile liquor permit.
Well, that's different.
Right.
mean,
So
if there's no
this is
such
what-
thing, then that's
This is what we
different.
were told, that it was a
Well,
mobile.
But because it follows the sales and the location of the sales.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then
So there's no.
Then they can't get-
then they were wrong. They were wrong to do. Period.
Yeah,
Exactly. You can't.
and that's why this is here to try and address that.
Right.
They would have to have an application saying what they were gonna do, and we can either approve
I
it.
mean, I guess anytime people are going to try to get around this, however they can, and
Which on one level is good because they're not using the park. And now they are, and they're trying to get around it. It just says at least we're
right.
upping the
But-
usability.
I mean, so
It's a good framework. It's a good
It's
start. We can make
right.
adjustments.
It's
later.
the enforceability I think you're concerned with more than anything.
Actually, my background is more risk management. And
Yeah.
There's things and actually, because I've been through the permitting process with the state,
Mhm.
they really control it. And the process you have to go through is very stringent.
Right.
30 days before, you've got to, I had to go to the chief of police, you have to draw a map and say exactly where the alcohol is allowed to be consumed. I mean, it's a big deal and they have to do that. That has to be done
Well, like I said,
for anybody to get a permit.
they were wrong.
Exactly.
Mhm.
They were lying. Essentially, the woman was, whoever
Yeah.
said they had this mobile permit.
Okay.
So they would have been in violation of this.
Mhm.
That's what I mean. That's different than whether the wording is proper. Did somebody manage to
Well, it actually comes up
snake
later.
around us?
It comes up later. as well.
What's that?
On the C, did we agree to split part C into two paragraphs?
I think that makes sense.
That seems,
is there a motion to make that
Simple.
recommendation?
Motion to recommend we,
I'll second.
this discussion C, we move into two paragraphs. First paragraph starts with no persons and ends with village website. Second paragraph starts with alcoholic beverages and ends with approval of the event.
Is there a second?
Okay.
I second this.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Who motioned
I did.
and who
Yes.
seconded?
Van Horn seconded.
Van Horn. And without objection, that was unanimous. To split
You were
into
talking,
two
okay,
paragraphs.
voting.
Okay.
get something else?
Yeah, on the fires and grilling, which is section E, Lou's already, I had two thoughts on it. It says fire debris must be completely extinguished before the user leaves the area and must appropriately secure and dispose of off-site. I don't know that, I think, do we have to put a time frame on that, like within 24 hours? Because if it's, I mean, I've had plenty of grill outs in parks, and that's the last thing I want to deal with at the end of the day, is making sure that happens. But give me 24 hours, I'll do it the next morning. When that leads to maybe that's the value of a fee. If you're gonna rent it and grill, maybe there's not a fee, a deposit. And then if we have to clean it up for them, that's part of it.
And
That's
that's a discussion when
right.
we get the fees and
Right.
application forms.
But in terms of putting a time frame on the
The cleanup.
cleanup, basically,
I think this is good.
24 hours?
Yeah, I don't see a need to We're gonna have permits.
No, because people aren't gonna come back, and
Yeah.
if they're gonna leave it overnight, did they really put it out and stuff like that? That's
Well,
what
that's
I'm
what
worried about.
you're saying, that they shouldn't have to put it out for 24 hours.
No, what I mean is like,
Not have to clean up the ashes for 24 hours. is what I'm saying.
Because he's really drunk at the end of the day. It's hard.
tired, exhausted, and it's not that easy to put out a grill. I mean, it looks easy, but,
We know.
you know,
Grill.
yeah, well, I
we've all
mean,
drank.
and,
I
you know,
mean,
then
cooked.
scoop it out while it's wet and mushy and
Yeah.
whatever else. I'd rather, you know, let it rot tonight and I'll go do it in the morning. Or
I
something.
think that could be something that's on the permit,
Okay,
a timeframe.
Everyone in agreement that that's,
Mhm.
and are we keeping notes? Are you keeping notes?
I'm not-
Something
well-
about what we, because we're going to return to this question about the
Yeah.
permit. We wanted things that were addressing
Got it.
those pieces.
You're drunk cooking.
Let me say, I don't really, I think if we put a time frame on cleaning it up, they're not gonna come back.
No,
They're
right.
not gonna do it.
Okay.
And that's
So-
how we can enforce
And,
that
yeah,
deposits.
and
Well,
to
the
some
word-
extent, it's
To me,
not,
that comes to
That's
mind
a
just
good point.
immediately.
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
that's fair. That's
well,
fair.
I think,
Or prior to leaving.
Are we gonna have grills there, or they gotta bring their own grill, right?
Well, it says before they
Discussion
leave
about
the
whether
area.
the girls
Right.
know.
Oh,
it says before they leave the area.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, I don't, this is not our problem.
No.
If they want to grill, they need to clean it up, secure it, make sure that it's not gonna burn up, not gonna light up again. I mean, there's your liability. If they
Not gonna
throw
hurt
some dirt
someone
on
who's
it
walking
and then
by.
leave and say we got
Like-
24 hours and then all of a sudden it lights up again, there's a problem.
Yeah, we could make it so that it's only gas grills.
Should we- Should we change it to leave the park versus leave the area? Because technically I live in the area.
That's, I think that might be pretty
That's probably a
wise.
good point.
Yeah. Would leave the park.
You and your big brains.
She's got a law background.
Yeah, that,
So do I.
I've got the-
And it has numbers in front of it.
I've got the loans.
Okay, are we good with that change? Leaves the park instead of the area?
Yeah.
Yes.
for me.
All right.
And help me understand then, section F for the motor vehicles, it says no motor vehicles or assisted vehicles shall be operated within a park area, not specifically designed or designed for vehicle use.
Designated.
Right, okay, well, when we've had the setups, the band, they have to drive around, there's people driving across the thing, to bring food over to the July 4 event, and I mean, all
So
those
it's the
things.
meaning of designated. Who's designating? Is that the administration that's designating? 'Cause
No,
the
he's
administration
talking
says
about
they're-
the
Well,
park
this
area.
Probably
Right.
needs to say with permission because
Yeah.
there's two things here. If a group of senior citizens shows up with cartons of Coke in their back trunk and they need to get them to the stand and they just need to quickly drive a lightweight vehicle across and back, I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. If the circus decides that one of their workers is going to bring in their big flatbed truck and make divots in the park,
Right.
that's a bigger issue. Before that happens, I'd like to know
Right.
Permission.
who's
That's kind of
bringing what in. So that probably needs to state that you need
Some kind of
permission to have a vehicle in the park.
I mean, it's kind of, the last thing that says the village is exempt from this, I know a lot of our events, then people are gonna do it. But if we keep getting busier, I think it's gotta be clear. And you're right, I don't think we want people driving across it if we had a big rain, because it's gonna leave ruts in places we don't want it, so.
Yeah, so as we have it, we're having that written in, the part that's been requested by Mr. Hirth to be.
Yeah, I think we
On the
need,
application.
and again, but I do think we need to still exempt the ADA,
Oh,
someone
yeah.
with a disability.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was checking
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Me of all people. Right now.
Any other?
Yeah, the last one, because actually the other ones we already kind of covered with my questions. It's the very last letter, 0, or O, yes. Village exemption. Village-sponsored events that are open to the public are exempt from these park rules, consistent with ADA guidelines, et cetera. What is a village-sponsored event? What defines that? I think we need to know that because liability falls on that, on the sponsorship.
Well, I think I think you'll know it when you see it. You have a July 4th party over there that the village is organized, advertised, et cetera. That's going to be village sponsored. You have a
75th anniversary.
75th anniversary Golf Village Golf Manor. Village puts it together, advertises, et cetera. That's village sponsored. You know,
Is it defined by village participation with money or with effort or with?
yes, probably all of the above.
Organized
Those
and
are all-
sanctioned?
all of
Huh?
Organized and sanctioned?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean we could expand the language.
Well, this is what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
Is that
We should probably,
if somebody else has a big event and they bill it as Golf Manor's,
St. Patrick's Day.
yeah, whatever. What defines that as, okay, it
That's-
says Golf Manor.
Well, right, but it's not.
It's not the permit.
I mean, it's not. They can.
Well-
They could go over there and say, "Hey, we're having the Village of Golf Manor Bastille Day," and there are a bunch of French, isn't Bastille Day
Yes.
French? Okay, a bunch of French Golf Manor. I don't think there's any French people at Golf Manor, but if there were, and they decide we're going to have Bastille Day, it's Village of Golf Manor Bastille Day. Sorry, that's not sponsored by the Village of Golf Manor.
I think
Just putting the label on it doesn't sponsor.
Actually,
sponsor.
it can lead to that.
It could lead to that. I know where you're going.
Well-
If we somehow act to, to adopt it, let's just say, or sanction it.
Exactly.
But then it's going to be sponsored by the village.
So, and that's, you just said exactly what I'm trying to do is, this is about risk management. And if you look at every event in most municipalities, it's gonna be Cincinnati Chili Festival hosted by or sponsored by.
Mhm.
That's the one that holds the liability. Whether there's liquor there, they're the ones with the permit, not Cincinnati.
Mhm.
They're the ones that have the licenses to sell food. They're the ones that do that. It has to be separated, and that's actually the way you're supposed to do it. In Golf Manor, that's what we should be saying. It's Golf Manor sponsored by who? Because that's who is gonna have to hold, if they're gonna do alcohol,
Well, wait a minute.
they're gonna have to have a permit.
We really can't. Let's say, do they just say, we're gonna have again, Bastille Day, and it's the Village of Golf Manor Bastille Day, and they go over there and that's what they do. I mean, we can't really prevent that from happening. And we can't say, you've got to say sponsored by the Greater French Society of Golf Manor. We can't. They're just going to do it. It's a matter of factually what's happening. Is the reality that the Village of Golf Manor is sponsoring the event, or did just somebody slap the name Golf Manor on it? If it's the latter, then there's no liability for the Village of Golf Manor. If it's the former, no, there isn't. You just can't control what people call it. If it's the former.
But my point is that we know that to be true,
Mhm.
but without the value of having it's like a handbook on a marketing sign to say, this is the event, here's who's running it. Because if somebody
Well,
if somebody does drink too much and hits somebody, kills somebody, and they believe that Golf Manor was a sponsor, but we know they weren't, it's still gonna be a lawsuit.
Oh,
A
they'll get
lawsuit-
tossed out though.
A lawsuit
Well-
happens. We get sued a lot. Companies get sued. That doesn't mean they lose. And just because somebody says, oh, it said Golf Manor, they file a lawsuit, and we present all this evidence, or there's no evidence presented on the other side that we had anything to do with it, it gets thrown out.
Okay.
Just let me ask you, what would you propose then
what would be
to
the
prevent
proposed
this from
language?
happening?
That even if it's a group of residents, it has to have some sort of association or something attached to it. You can get those pretty cheap, not like a 501c. It has to have some kind of label to it, because I've seen this where people will sue, workers' comp and all these other, just because, and it ends up, oh, no, we're not liable, well, we still pay them 20 grand just to make it go away.
Well, I've
And-
seen
and
that.
those kinds of things to help mitigate some of those things. Because like for me personally, I had insurance for the alcohol, for all that stuff. You could all feel comfortable that if something happened, it was on me. But I had all the insurance. I had all the legal documents for the nonprofit. And that's what I'm encouraging. I think that's what it does make a clear, what's the word, subrogation of the
Well-
liability or something like that. And,
Mitigation.
no, subrogation.
Subrogation
Separate.
is where you're responsible for where you stand in the shoes of somebody else
Okay,
for the
then
purpose
that's
of
not-
recovery.
That's not the right word.
I don't think it is.
It's the,
So what is the issue with item O that you're proposing should be changed?
well, my issue is that I think we need to define what a village-sponsored event is.
He's saying that the part there in what is that?
Oh,
Where it says village sponsored, that's too ambiguous, that it needs to be more clear. And I don't know that we're all uniform on that feeling, but
I don't
that's what he's
understand the
saying.
need it's village, you can say Village Golf Manor sponsored.
yeah, we'll just suggest some language. I mean, we could add more words to it. I don't know that it would.
And we don't
make
have to
any-
figure it out tonight either.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not
collect your
gonna change
thoughts.
the-
I think
the
that's the,
liability.
I mean, you could also say like village, that the issuance of the liquor authorization does not constitute village sponsorship, if your concern is really the alcohol portion and.
Yeah, and it's something like that, I guess would spell it out better.
Yeah, but
I mean,
we're
I'm not too
sponsoring their
concerned.
permits.
The village does not
Right.
necessarily endorse this event.
No, but the liquor authorization from the village office, so I guess like on that authorization, it could say
You can
like,
say that, we're not liable.
yeah, you could just be like, this does not constitute village
Kinda like
sponsorship.
The concept
so
thing.
Mr. Hirth is suggesting like having a statement. I don't know where we'd put the statement per se, but the village doesn't necessarily bless this event.
Right, the
How about-
issuance of a permit does not.
No, that's
Yeah.
a good idea. Any licenses or permits granted under this ordinance does not,
Yeah.
does not entail village sponsorship of the event.
Yeah, something like that.
I
Does
think
that
it's
work?
really important to have that. I mean, I know you.
Okay, we got it.
but that's-
So where would that be?
And I'm,
Probably under O. I
Okay.
think we put it under O.
Okay.
But that's still not gonna cover the other issue.
And we
What
can't
if there's
force
somebody-
people.
What if just somebody shows up, they don't need a license, they don't need anything, and they say it's Bastille Day, Village Golf Manor's Bastille Day.
well, the only point I'm trying to make is that the more we put up front with little things like this, it mitigates some of the crazy stuff I've seen on the back end.
Okay.
You know, with workers' comp claims and the marketing stuff I've been in, that people will sue for having the M&Ms the wrong color. I mean, it's crazy.
I've been there too,
And-
plenty, and I understand where you're coming from.
And I'm just trying to be I'm trying to be proactive.
Oh, I get you, gotcha.
It's not about trying to solve that, so.
I appreciate your attention to the detail and your concerns for having the best legislation for our residents. I think we all do.
So I'm gonna work
It's
on that
all-
language, but basically the issuance of a license or permit by the village under this ordinance does not equate to village sponsorship of an event.
And then at a future point, let's define what sponsorship is, just to.
Probably have a whole
Well, with the
definition
permits,
section.
because we'll be doing the permits
So we
via
do the permits.
resolution later.
And on the permits, the village is not mentioned on there.
I got it.
The village event.
If we
Village event is exempt.
I mean, maybe I would add some language, village sponsored, organized, something else,
I thought blessed was good.
Yeah.
less.
That would have a really good legal meaning.
Yeah, I
Check-
think,
check with our
no.
insurance
You're
company,
blessed.
how they have it.
You know,
We're
What?
gonna
You're
change it
blessed.
from mayor to pope.
Insurance.
Well,
If blessed by the mayor.
you know, yeah,
Have
all right,
language.
okay.
Blessed by Pope Dinsmore.
Let Mr. Butler figure that out.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll do that.
So we can go ahead and do our, unless there's any other discussion, go ahead and do our roll call
Do you have
vote
something?
on the second reading.
No?
No.
All right.
Mr. Hurst, will you do a roll call?
Sure, Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Knapp,
So roll call on the second reading.
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Hart.
Yes.
Second reading passes.
That's all I've got.
Very good. All right, thank you, Mr. Butler. So here. Executive committee did not meet this evening. Any updates at all other than that our next meeting, executive committee will be 6 p.m. on February 13th. Planning commission, let's see, next scheduled meeting is Monday, February 6th at 6:30 p.m. pending any business. Community engagement, we'll meet, as we were saying, on next week on
31st at 9:30 a.m. pending the availability of the app vendor.
very good.
Okay, so it doesn't go out to everyone on council.
Yeah.
Can I ask something about that? Somebody else talked to me about this. It's the National Thank a Postman Day, February 4th. Is that something community engagement could encourage somewhere in the neighborhood or around? Because we love James, but
We do
I'm
it.
taking it more than one.
We take care of James.
Yeah, and, but I think that would be a really cool thing for the village to get involved in. I checked into it. We're not allowed to give them anything worth more than $20 and one gift. Nothing, over 50 for a year. No gift cards, no cash, things like that. But
Girl Scout.
I love James.
Yeah.
My kids love him. My dog loves him.
We got it. Yeah, we all do.
So
Yeah.
I'd love to put out something for the
Postman,
village to thank him.
one of the postmen
Oh.
who
But then you
works
guys
the
outline
beat.
all the
Yeah.
James
versions
Vermillion?
Yeah.
that are on the day.
Could he be the grand marshal for
Did
the
you guys
parade?
individual? do this, or-
Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know.
You want me to ask him? I
That's
see him
what
like
I'm
every
going to-
So, Mr.
Don't ask him yet.
Mr. Liability Specialist, we want to make sure that we're not saying it's officially, sponsored by Golf Manor, that
No.
you're giving out these gifts and things in case he chokes on the lollipop that somebody gives him, right?
It's diabetes.
People should just do individual things.
Yeah,
You
I
put
think-
something out saying,
I think it's wonderful
encourage
for people to
residents
give their
Thank you.
appreciation
Mhm.
to,
And let
to
people
their
aware
local
that that's the day
mail
to post
person.
something.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
Yeah.
newsletter. Oh, yeah, we gotta do that.
Just put it on the
Yeah.
website.
Website.
And just state that that's what's happening there.
I just
So
encourage
the
you
request has been made to have it on the website,
Village
a
message
statement about the
to care for
post
Yeah.
office
Put on the website.
appreciation, post office mail server appreciation day, whatever the official word is on it. Can whoever, Mr. Van Harn, with your interest in this, can you write up something and send to Mr. Hirth about a suggestion of what could be on the website?
Well,
And then you can take a look at that.
Proclamation.
Oh,
Happy
You
to
need
do.
the names of each, do we have all the list of all the people that service Gulf Manor?
But then also, what about the postmen who live but work outside of Gulf
Well, we can
Manor?
include that and, be lots of lines on there. Someone send me a proclamation and I'll be happy to make a proclamation honoring.
Sharon
honoring
looks like she
folks.
wants to do it.
I thought the mayor was.
do we know how
It's
many
already
postmen
saying
work in our
that.
village?
What's that?
How many postmen work in our village, do you know?
I thought there were at least, well, it
There's
depends.
quite a
There's
few.
James, there's the one that does Pleasant Ridge,
Yeah,
Englewood,
it's a
Canterbury,
female too.
and there's somebody else that does down there. So, I mean, there's gotta be.
I think that's gonna be the call for Van Horn.
That's
Huh?
a different person.
I know, and now you run
Different one
into,
every day.
there's substitutes that come in
Subs-
because of the staffing. We have James, but
We
not
have a
always, if you
substitute.
take it off to somewhere else.
He
Go
gets
back to beer in the
vacations.
park.
I think just let everybody put something on the website that says.
Right.
Reminders.
So-
Anyway, I just think it's a cool idea.
It is cool. I didn't know it
Send,
existed.
send something to Mr.
Somebody
Hirth.
call the news. I think
He's happy to put it
So,
on the, happy to put it on the website so that more people know about it. We can share it on social media. And if anyone is interested in suggesting a proclamation that should be read, you're welcome to send it my way.
Mhm. Sounds good.
And let's see, Ms. Cheney, do you have an education report?
Yeah, very short. LSDMC met on January 11th and PRM thanked our Gulf Manor Police Department for the Shop with the Cops. They were thrilled with it, as always. 10 of the Gulf Manor children at PRM took part in it. The resource coordinator brought up the fact that other parents from PRM and Kennedy Heights and Silverton are asking her if their kids could be included next year. So it's something I think the Gulf Manor Police Department can discuss with PRM. Because I do know that some other officers took part in it. One was a Cincinnati officer, so
Mhm.
maybe they can all get together and do something, include everybody next year. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Finance Committee did not meet this evening. The next meeting of the Finance Committee is 6 PM on February 27th. And let's see, I believe that that's all the announcements and everything that we have. We have scheduled to do our executive session for matters of,
Real estate.
for matters of
acquisition.
real estate acquisition, so.
Oh, and before that, just one announcement. Greg Landsman spoke at Evanston Recreation Center last weekend, and I went. And I did give him our contact information so he can come here and talk to us. He's
Nice.
making his rounds, and he's going to be in another town hall in Madeira in February.
What's the topic?
The topic?
Yeah.
For what?
Said he's gonna come and speak to us.
Oh, for whatever we want.
Okay,
Yeah,
as our rep,
yes,
Yes,
as our rep,
as our representative.
Congressman. Mhm.
There you go.
It was a very good town hall, and it was
Yeah.
well received, very diverse.
So if you're joining us via video, this is pretty much the end of what we're doing. We'll come back after we'll come back to close out our meeting. But other than that, we're going to be shutting our doors and going into executive session with a roll call vote. Is there a motion to go?
Motion to go into executive session
For
for matters of
real estate
real
acquisition.
estate acquisitions.
Second that.
All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Knapp,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder.
Yes.
Very good.
We're clear.